Story 1. Oyster stew casserole thing made every Thanksgiving by my grandmother. Family rule was that everyone had to take one bite of everything before getting seconds, and everyone would scrape a tiny bit of the saltine cracker top to meet the requirements, even the adults. After Grandpa passed, my aunt had a sit down with Grandma and told her she didn't have to make that casserole anymore. Apparently, it was Grandpa's favorite thing. Grandma, blessedly, didn't make more of it. Story 2. When I was about 13, my grandma made a joint birthday meal for my dad and me. Pork chops, green beans, and applesauce. I hate pork chops and green beans, and I am SOSO about applesauce. But I was raised to show appreciation, so apparently, I made quite a show of how much I loved Grandma's meal. Unfortunately, that became the traditional birthday meal I had every year for the next 8 years. Sadly, my grandma passed away, so I never had to have that birthday meal again. But the first year after she died, I was telling my college roommate how sad I was, actually, to not have my traditional birthday meal. She was an artist, so she made a birthday cake and used frosting to simulate a rendition of that same meal. Actually, that cake and the kindness that went into it are among my most special memories. Story 3. My grandma's lumpy mashed potatoes. The potatoes were never boiled fully, and the lumps were always hard. I never had a turkey there that wasn't like chewing jerky either. The days of her hosting family dinners are long gone, but I actually miss them a lot, lumps and all. Story 4. Once upon a time, when I had grown up and left home, I went to my grandparents' house for lunch in the summer with my dad and uncle. We had tuna sandwiches. My grandmother, who was a great cook and whom I loved dearly, made awful tuna sandwiches. Every time, I don't think she drained the water out of the tuna can, so the whole sandwich was a wet, sloppy mess. As we were cleaning up after lunch, I very timidly mentioned to my dad, "I don't really like Nanny's tuna sandwiches." This was the first time I had ever expressed disappointment with her cooking, so I was very shy about it. Without breaking a beat, my dad replies, "None of us do, but we love her so we eat it." Story 5. Mills stuffing at Thanksgiving. It is not stuffing, it is mashed potatoes. Honestly, the breadcrumbs are overly soggy, and then she adds mashed potatoes, carrots, raisins, and usually a new mystery ingredient. She beats it together with very little seasoning. It is weird, bland, and not much different than the real mashed potatoes that are also on the table. Story 6. My husband's dear old sweet 94-year-old granny used to insist on boiled onions at Christmas dinner. Whole Spanish onions just boiled until clear, not caramelized, not even sliced, just 4 whole transparent onions in a casserole dish. Every year the family would pass the dish around as though we were going to take some, and it took me 5 years of eating a hunk of onion before I realized that no one else was taking them. Here I was, a dutiful new girlfriend trying to be polite, desperately trying to figure out what to do with them. Eat a slice on top of a bite of turkey, on their own as a palate cleanser, mix it into the stuffing, and the rest of the in-laws were just passing and passing while me and Granny were eating and eating. She's gone now, and no one tries to make them in her honor. Story 7. Aunt Jan's sugar-free cherry pie. She makes an absolutely amazing Dutch apple pie, but only brings one of them. She brings 2 to 3 sugar-free pies and gets upset when no one touches those, and we fight over her delicious apple pie instead. Story 8. It was a dish and it was good. Too good. A distant aunt's 5-bean spicy bacon salad at Thanksgiving, amongst a bunch of big eaters. We came in with big appetites, and she had made enough to feed a battalion. After a couple of hours, the chemical warfare fallout was so great, Grandma lost all composure and demanded we all get out of her house, and we had to sit on the porch. Adults and kids alike sat outside, releasing farts and being utterly unashamed while giggling at each other. Pawpaw later said Grandma opened up every window and took away his pipe before he blows us all to hell. She also forbade my aunt from ever remaking it. Story 9. Anything that my brother makes. He's convinced he's a great cook and makes a big deal of cooking for people. He's stuck cooking like a university student. Fat, carbs, meat, no veggies. And it's not even good. But because he's a very moody individual, it's easier to eat and praise than anything else. I only see him once a year, so it's manageable. Story 10. My family makes chicken salad, which consists of chicken, mayonnaise, and whatever is left in the cupboard. Literally, raisins, walnuts, Captain Crunch, 10-year-old granola, and more. Absolutely disgusting, man. And we all have to sit around complimenting how good it is. Story 11. I present to you my grandmother's eldritch delight, the pear salad. Place 1 leaf of lettuce on a small plate, preferably wilted. On top, put 1/2 of a canned pear. Fill the divot with pure, unadulterated mayonnaise. Top with shredded cheddar. Serve at room temperature. Enjoy. Do you want to know the worst part? It's actually good, like really good. It's as if the ancient ones kissed every little bite. Edit, the ancient ones call. I must have one. Story 12. My mother-in-law makes corned beef and cabbage for Thanksgiving every single year and gets upset when my husband and I don't want to go to her house for this holiday. All because my sister-in-law, the favorite, doesn't like turkey. So, on Turkey Day, my poultry-loving husband can't go to his mom's and have turkey, and we're not allowed to bring our own. I've offered to smoke a bird for them, but that was not accepted, so we usually go to one of my parents instead. She did make a plastic packaged turkey one year, though, but it tasted plasticky, and my husband was also upset about it. She also forgets that my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law's husband, is allergic to a lot of things and refuses to make even a single dish the guy can eat, even though he provides an amazing lifestyle for her prized child. Story 13. My mother-in-law makes meals that are almost good, but it never hits the mark because she doesn't use salt. She doesn't use any seasoning unless it's living herbs. She's old school crunchy, so everything she makes is like 90s whole food style, low-fat, half-cooked salad. She uses solid ingredients. She just doesn't use any ingredient she thinks is unhealthy. No sugar, no salt, nothing with preservatives or dyes. And while those are healthy choices, it's not exactly the best choice when you're trying to make a birthday cake for your 8-year-old grandson. I swear if she just let go of whatever almond mom nonsense she was on and added some salt to her food sometimes, people would probably think she's a good cook. Story 14. My husband's aunt makes an abomination of a pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. The pumpkin is sliced like an apple, and there's no cinnamon or other additives. It also looks deceptively like apple pie and makes for a very disappointing dessert. Story 15. Most of my family's go-to dishes are quite good, but there's one that I used to dread every time we had cold plates for Boxing Day or Easter. That was my Aunt Kim's corn and pineapple salad. It consisted of canned corn, canned pineapple bits, sometimes diced raw onion and shredded carrot, a lot of Miracle Whip or a cheap store-brand equivalent, and a thick layer of powdered paprika on top. Story 16. My sister-in-law's Thanksgiving dinner, which is exactly the same as her Christmas menu. She uses no seasoning, not even salt and pepper. Then, she serves canned gravy and melts Velveeta on whatever the boiled-to-death vegetables are, which evidently is the stand-in for seasoning. My son only eats the Pillsbury rolls, which wasn't so bad when he was little but is really uncomfortable now that he's a grown man. Story 17. My aunt's famous green bean casserole. It is incredibly mushy and has a weird, overly salty taste. No one really enjoys it, but it has become a tradition that we all pretend to like. Story 18. My poor grandma tries so hard, but she is just not great in the kitchen. She likes to make this French toast bake that ends up soggy on the bottom with raw eggs. If she wanted to cook for Christmas brunch, there had to be an after plan because even if it was all edible, she never made enough. It clicked one year when she said if she didn't have an ingredient or know what something was, she'd just skip it. Story 19. Almost anything my mother-in-law makes. I wouldn't say her food is horrible. It's just so bland and sad. Everything is just under-seasoned meat smothered in some kind of bland sauce over rice or mashed potatoes. Story 20. It's sort of like a vegetarian lasagna that my mom makes. It replaces the things that make a lasagna, well, a lasagna, and it's basically just yellow plantains instead of the lasagna noodles. If you ever wanted to feel your soul wail, eat it. Story 21. My mom makes macaroni and cheese with tomatoes. Now, you might be imagining creamy cheesiness and pasta combined with some ripe, delicious tomatoes to add texture. However, this is not the case. She uses overcooked elbow macaroni, cheddar, and canned peeled tomatoes. It's a bland horror, and I wouldn't touch it with a 39.5-foot pole. Story 22. My mother-in-law would make mashed potatoes by boiling potatoes, then pour out most, but not all, of the water, then mash. No butter, no cream, no salt or pepper, just potato and water. Story 23. Hello, at every single meal, there are multiple kinds of jello. Regular, some with cream, some with fruit, others with vegetables because it's healthy, right? It isn't even that they have it with the meal, which is absurd because it's obviously a dessert. It's that if half your plate isn't jello, they try to shame you. Yes, Loretta. Sorry I didn't load my 2-year-old's plate up with sugar water-soaked vegetables. Guess she's just going to grow up deprived. Story 24. Grandma's chicken parm. Somehow raw and burned at the same time, the breading slides right off, the cheese is basically rubber, and the sauce is mostly water. I miss it. Story 25. If you, like me, come from the former Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, you might be aware of the abomination that is kolodets, also known as aspic or meat jelly. It's vile, and I hope nobody reading this who is unfamiliar with it ever has the misfortune of having to consume it. Story 26. My aunt's apple pie. When I was a kid, it was always the best. Then, as we all got older, she switched to Splenda or some diet sweetener, and it's been awful ever since. She makes it every year for her favorite niece, and I just smile and tell her thank you and eat the smallest piece. Story 27. Pretzel salad. I think it might be a Mormon tradition. Pretzels, cream cheese, strawberry jelly, whipped cream. I get the side-eye every holiday, and you don't want the pretzel salad? It's my favorite. Story 28. My Aunt Mary makes a fantastic taco salad. At my grandmother's funeral, Mary's famous taco salad had a hair in it. Actually, it had more than a few curly hairs in it. We love her and are forced to assume it happened because of a cooking mishap with a barbershop raccoon. It doesn't matter how it happened, though. Now, no one can eat Aunt Mary's hairy taco salad. Story 29. One year, we did Passover at a random family friend's house. She served the matzo ball soup, and I dug in only to find it was chicken water. She saw the blank looks all around and announced she did not cook with salt. At all. Yikes. Story 30. No, my family is unhygienic. I do not participate in that since I found a dirty bandage in Nana's blueberry pie 25 years ago. That's my mom's side. My dad's side all eat dip over the communal bowl to catch what falls out of their mouth. I'm a cycle breaker. Story 31. Not so much a family get-together thing, but my grandmother used to force-feed me canned asparagus with cheese on toast. To this day, I cannot taste asparagus without dry heaving. Story 32. My great-grandmother, before she got too old, used to make tamales. They weren't horrible because they tasted bad, but because they were incredible and you'd sit there and eat all you could, and then go home and have the worst diarrhea of your life. Story 33. My aunt made a brisket for our last family get-together, and that will be her last time. She low-key got roasted by a few family members. My family has a few chefs and more really good cooks. I'm not one of them, so I don't comment on anyone's cooking. If it's not good, I'll just never eat it again, but I personally won't make shady comments about it to the person. Hopefully, she will practice and get better. Story 34. Before my uncle passed, he made his version of rice pilaf. When I was younger, it didn't taste too bad. As I got older, it was just a flavorless combination of chicken breasts, button mushrooms, some kind of thin pasta, slivered almonds, and some flavorless rice. Nothing but bland in a pan. It needed salt in a big way. Butter and chicken broth would have also helped. It had potential. Story 35. After reading these comments, I am grateful for my family's cooking. Laugh out loud. It is not what I typically eat. It is a lot of processed and just unhealthy food, but it reminds me of home, and I enjoy it when I go back. Story 36. Not anymore because my grandmother passed away 12 years ago. She and my grandfather lived several hours away. Whenever we would go see them, she always served us sloppy joe and cantaloupe. To this day, I can't stand cantaloupe. Story 37. My family has a tradition of going to my grandma's house on Christmas Eve to open presents. For dinner, my grandma always makes potato soup. No turkey, no ham, just soup. It's the blandest soup ever. She uses some special milk that's easy on the stomach because she has a lot of digestive issues. No salt or pepper, just milk and potatoes. You have to season it yourself. I used to hate that stuff and would load up on appetizers like Christmas cookies and cheese and crackers instead. Well, now I'm starting to inherit the family digestive issues, and suddenly, this soup is like the elixir of the gods whenever I have a bout of irritable bowel syndrome. Story 38. Does anyone else's family have a tradition of eating bean soup and noodle soup for Christmas Eve dinner? Family heritage. Polish, German, Croatian, Slavic. Great-grandparents immigrated from Central/Eastern Europe to the Pittsburgh area about 100 years ago, and it has been an age-old family tradition of ours to eat bean soup and noodle soup for Christmas Eve dinner. Noodle soup is just flat noodles in a roux-type thick base. Bean soup is beans, possibly kidney beans, in a very plain thick base. Served side by side in the same bowl, they are thick enough that they don't mix together unless you decide to mix them. As kids, we thought it was gross and disgusting, but it is a very old and time-honored family tradition. Our family lore is that Christmas Eve used to be a Catholic fast day, i.e., no meat, chicken, pork, or ham, and our coal miner/mill worker great-grandparents were too poor to afford anything other than this: noodles, beans, flour, butter, salt, and pepper. We always thought it was peculiar to our family, but as an adult now, I am wondering if it comes from some wider tradition somewhere that just got lost over time.